Hey, my name is D.Morgan, the owner of Committed Music Company, LLC. I've been involved with music since 1998 or 99 when I started around there. As far as me defining music, it's basically just anything that's audible. You know, the hum of trains can produce a pattern that's rhythmic that can drummers can use, things like that. It's all around us. It doesn't necessarily have to have words or a melody or a riff on the guitar. It could just be something that's you hum in your head. So, or even spoken word is pretty musical at times, as far as different languages, and a lot of the Japanese culture actually does better in school because it's more tonal. So they have more tone control with their voice. So if they say a certain word like da 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 da, and then da da da, it could be the same word, spelling wise, but you say it differently. You say it almost musically, and that becomes a different word or character. Same character, different word. So I started music because it was something that I could easily hear. Like I could play a note on my guitar, and I can hear that almost instantaneously. And so how it impacted my life was that, it was that escape, and quite often it was pretty sweet. It was a cool opportunity for me to read. A lot of times it was like old magazines from my friends that played guitar. So there was maybe like 5 or 10 people in my high school that played guitar, and I would borrow their books that were sometimes 2 or 3 months old after they had had their use out of them. So I learned without the internet, and I learned on my own how to play guitar the hard way. So when I began teaching, it was just a lot easier to understand it, and to understand it in a way that I can teach it. So sharing music with others, for me, is just natural. Like, when you hear that first note, or when you play that first riff from a song that you have heard on the radio or on your CD player or your boombox or your Walkman, you want to emulate that. You want to capture that somehow. Kind of a side note, but I think that people that are on the peer-to-peer file sharing networks and stuff like that, back in the day when those were popular, that's all they wanted. They wanted some kind of lasting impression that they could have, saying, I was here at this concert and they rocked our faces off, and I was there. I was physically there during Woodstock, or physically there during this Korn concert, or this Jason Mraz concert. So my influences in music are very wide. I really like Diana Krall. I like Chuck Schuldiner. He passed away, but he was a really good heavy metal artist, and his lyrics were really thought-provoking. So just anybody that has their personal life in order, and then their professional life or their business and musical aspirations, if that's golden, and their professional life is, or their personal life is golden, then they're kind of a hero, or a shiro, or a heroine, what they call that. But I think music is so popular because everybody wants a piece of that. Everybody wants to have that humming. They want to hum that melody or that hook. And there's a hook in every song. Sometimes some songs have a lot of hooks in them. So it's just ever changing as far as what I've received here. I'm actually at my Broadview Entertainment Arts University here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we're live. Over here we've got media, landscape, and painting, and that sort of thing. Learning different mediums to apply art to. And this is the Mac lab right here that we're in, and it's amazing. I have Pro Tools on here. I can access anything that I want. I can pull up a session that I was using and just play it back and really bask in that, that I made something on this little keyboard right here, which is just a trigger. It can create a guitar sound, it can create any type of sound, but it's constantly changing. What we hear and what we like as a society. It's always been said that, or the way I've heard it is, how a civilization rises or falls is primarily due to the architecture and how people respect that, and the arts or the music. So it's really important to me to bolster that, especially in film. A lot of composers and directors and producers say it's about 60% of the film is music. So, and without that, you would just have this Charlie Chaplin sort of black and white silent film with different stuff like that. So, the next question that I was asked was, it's pretty corny actually, but it was cool. Like, it had this shelving unit, you could pull out the CDs, and then you had this wall of CDs. So it was really iconic for me. Like, it was really therapeutic too. I can just take that CD out and put it in there and wait for it to spin up, get up to speed, and hear what that sound quality sounded like. But after I've been through music college, it's just amazing how my ear has developed to the quality that they play on the radio, MP3 quality that we buy off iTunes that we think is so great, but it's not actually a WAV format. So we're almost getting ripped off. It's $1.29 per song usually, unless you buy the album, right? But a lot of times you just want the single. When you want that song that makes you feel good, that kind of takes you to a place or helps you access a mood or something that you've experienced before. And a lot of songs for me, I just hear them, like How Near, How Far by Trail of Dead. That song is just so therapeutic for me, and I can just go back to that and instantly access all these memories that I had when that song was in my mental playlist, when that was on my MP3 player and I was listening to that while I was working out in the Air Force and that sort of thing. It was such a cool time. So, so as far as what genre of music I think impacted society the most, I think it'd have to be pre-internet, where the bands had to go into the studio and just stay there until they had these ideas in their head worked out. They had to read music, they had to do all these things. They didn't have the internet yet so much. They had a lot of hype. It was more media-based hype, like old school media, like newspapers and columns that were written on Led Zeppelin and things like that. So I love all kinds of music, but I think the 70s, the 60s and 70s were an era that you really had to know how to ad-lib your song live, your live presence and your live stage presence. You had to be an artist that could know the songs on your CDs so well that you could stray from those very precise recordings that sometimes took 20 to 30 takes on some parts, the drum part or the guitar part or that one high vocal part that you hear on that one favorite song that you have. I know that's kind of vague, but it's kind of meant to be vague. It's kind of a vague question for me to kind of put 60s and 70s are definitely where it's at, where we learned from the 70s and the 80s. So it's all cyclical, it's all this, we grab it and we take it to the next step, and we get to the 80s and we have shoegazer type post-hardcore, grunge starts coming up in the 90s, late, let's say mid, like 85, 86, grunge starts coming up and that sort of thing. But society, society has always had like a reformation. They've always gone through, truth has 3 stages. First, it's violently opposed. Secondly, it's like ridiculed, it's constantly ridiculed. And then the third is kind of like, duh, you should have had V8 this morning because it's accepted as self-evident, Well, of course, grunge was a huge era that defined music as we know it. So, it just makes sense as something is true to a society. I think we tend to accept it afterwards. But there's like these groups of people, like the people that are making this documentary, the people that are, other people that are being interviewed, people on the street that know music, that feel it and breathe it. That's what societal change is all about. And I think, we have all this music for our soundtrack to our lives. And it's such a beautiful thing because we can access this at any point. We have syncability on all our devices now, so we don't have to like have standalone computers and rock out at home and then get in our car and only have our CDs that we have in our car. The burned ones that you don't want to get, or you don't mind if they get stolen because they're burnt copies of CDs that you already bought. So a lot has changed in the industry, and I actually did a class that was offered from Berklee School of Music. It was called The Media Industry Landscape. And that book was written in 2004. It went to press in 2005, and it's, from October to the end of 2012. I mean, they were predicting things in that book in 2005 that were happening in 2010, 2011, and 2012, and this year, and 2013, which is amazing. But I wonder, what's their next book going to be? Because the market is ever changing, and you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be business savvy and understand that it is a business. It's a success model that people have taken in the past independently. You don't need a major label anymore. That's just an interest-free loan that you have to pay back, and hopefully that big label can recoup those costs if your band doesn't do well. But so you're seeing a lot of these Jason Mraz and Kobe Calais and a lot of these artists kind of come up, and it's a lot of grassroots sort of stuff like Mumford & Sons, and I mean, it's awesome. It's just that homegrown sort of feel, that Americana style is really big now too. A lot of banjo work, a lot of finger picking going on. Not so much the speed work in the 80s and the 90s. Shoegazer slowed down and kind of chordal progressions that you'll hear with like Duran Duran and stuff like that. So as a songwriter and a musician, I think music affects my audience. I write for myself, but I think of my audience when I write. It's so important because if you don't think of your audience, I try not to use you or I in any of my songs, unless it's really going there and you can't change it. But I try not to be married to my ideas, because once you write that and you finalize those lyrics and you start playing whatever instrument you're going to play it to, sure you can transpose it, sure you can change the chord structure up, but the feel and the feeling in the words, I mean, that's where it's at, because a lot, I would say at least 60 to 80% of your audience can't play a musical instrument, And maybe 10% or 20 or 30, I don't know the percentage, but some people can't even, are tone deaf. They can't even produce a musical sound that they can hold that note out and not stop themselves from singing it because they think they sound bad, or whatever bad is. But to me, anything, like going back to the first question to define music, anything that's musical, if you can lament and for the deepest cry you can have as a person, say you lost your dog or your aunt or someone close to you, a friend in a car accident, that cry, that gut-wrenching cry, that's from your chest, from your diaphragm, from your vocal cords and your larynx, and everything's working to, your emotions are kind of the catalyst, but everything in your body is working and exposing yourself because of that emotion. So I try to get, when I'm writing lyrics, I try to think of keywords, and I'll do a splat sheet. I'll just write down all these ideas that I think about this one subject, or kind of have that movie reel idea of what I want to say with a song. So a lot of times it's more poetic, but sometimes it's just that hit song that you hear on the radio, like the band Perry's "If I Die Young." Check that song out. And they wrote it in a matter of 15 minutes. And I talked to the guys in that band, and Neil and Kimberly, and I even had my cousin-in-law played lead guitar for them. So I've seen a lot of the industry changes that have been happening, and their record label was basically seen, Lady Antebellum, as the band that they wanted the band Perry to emulate. So they were kind of pruning them, just kind of getting them ready. Pruning's probably not the right word, but they're just kind of preparing them for that break. When a band breaks, it's a really pivotal point that you get your singles ready and you get your next album recorded, and maybe if you do a double album and you just don't release those albums. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this media for your audience. It's all for the audience, because you're the audience. Yeah, I have a belief that I don't even write songs. I just kind of tap into this spiritual thing and get in the frame of mind of if I'm this person in this story or in the song that I'm writing about, what are my emotions going to be? So a lot of times, that's where hit songs sound so cliche, and like, oh, that's just that radio song that's been played out. It's cliche for a reason, because all those hooks that are in that song, and all those melodies, and I even heard a song the other day. It was very close to Three Blind Mice, and there are famous writers that write a lot of country artist songs, and Nashville is huge for that. They're just churning out music, and ATL is a good place for that. Vegas has a few songwriters over there that I got to know. And as far as what my life would be like without music, I just imagine someone that's deaf, but if you go to TED, the TED Talks, there's actually a deaf woman, and she feels it. She feels these certain frequencies. Is how a note is sounded off. Is it registers at a certain frequency, like that A note, that fifth string on your guitar, is 440 hertz. And if you double that, you get another A note. So just basically kind of taking it down to anything that you hear, like a subwoofer. That's actually a frequency that's so low, it's not heard, it's more felt. So you actually feel that, that bass drop in dubstep. When it goes real low to where you can, it's kind of crackling at the end of the waveform. That's that feeling that you feel, or that sub kick. A lot of bands have like, if you just look up a sub kick, you'll know that feeling. So a lot of people think ghosts are within that frequency. So kind of crazy, scary stuff. But anything that's musical, anything that registers, whether it's, we don't hear anything above 20,000 hertz. So it's 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz is the range of human hearing. And without that, I don't know, I would find some way to be musical, whether it was percussively, but just going back to the woman that was deaf, she actually could talk very well. Not one of those Helen Keller sort of stories where you could actually hear the enunciation and the pronunciation of words kind of garbled or like tapered off, not as defined. But I would find some way to be musical, because I think people that find music to be interesting invest a lot of love in it. Even if you just love music, if you're a connoisseur of music and you're passionate about it. People buy stock in a company. Likewise, U2 is a band that a lot of people follow, for instance. And there's a lot of people that have, diehard, they're diehard fans, and they have tickets, and they travel with them. They just take their work on the road and they go to the shows that they want to go, and they're that rich enough, that well off. They've had multiple streams of income that they can do that. They can take 3 months off while this band tours and follow them. A lot of times that's how your job starts out. Is I would be thinking along the lines of follow that band for their whole tour and just say, hey, I'm with such and such. I graduated from this music college, and this college doesn't even have, one of my professors here, is the very fact of this room, it's kind of ironic. This is my professor's room, Professor Openshaw, and he teaches desktop production here, where we go through Pro Tools and we select stuff. So I'll just open up a session for you, and you can hear something that's been played. Hopefully it'll play through here, and we can, yeah, there we go. So this was a collaboration. It's a huge song right now. And it's just a beautiful thing, like, to just have this computer here. It's very expensive, but because of the GI Bill, I got to serve my country. This is my reward. I got to do this. So let's see. Let's try that. We'll play it back. Let's see what we got. Good. Levels are going. It might be going to this right here, but anyways, it's just a beautiful thing to have this here, and thanks for the opportunity and the time you invested into watching this, and never stop listening to music. It'll bless your life in the craziest ways. So with that being said, I will cut it short, and for a very long video, but you got something to work with. So much love, mad respect. Peace.